Looks like we are kind of all situated, and we can get started. So hi everyone, welcome back to Perspectives for Prospectives. This is our third episode in our series, and we are very excited to be able to spend an hour with all of you tonight. As always, we want to acknowledge first and foremost that we're not able to have the Promise program on our campus this semester, this year. But we are very excited to be able to bring you these virtual offerings and connect virtually with all of you in this way tonight. Like I said before, this is our third episode in our series. We have three more after this. And just as a reminder, if you can't tune in live or you need to leave a little bit early tonight, you can find all of our recordings on the Promise Program website. Also, if you missed either of the last episodes, you can see those up on our website now too. But kind of turning focus into tonight, this episode is called Our Collective Community. And with us, we have three members of the Hamilton Collective Community, which will introduce themselves in just a minute. And tonight we're going to be talking about student support services, identity-based organizations, religious life on campus, all kinds of opportunities that Hamilton students engage with the Hamilton community in general. So as always, Nikki and I are here as your hosts. And tonight we have Jeff, Maria, and Paola. So as always, my name is Tyler Boyle. I am an assistant dean of admission here at Hamilton. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. A fun fact about me is that I once had a goldfish that lived for 2 years. And I made my mom promise to me that she didn't just keep replacing it. It was, in fact, the same goldfish for 2 years, which was great. And one of the ways that I engage with Hamilton students on a regular basis is that actually, as Paola will probably mention, I am the new staff advisor for the Gender and Sexuality Union on campus. So I get to work very closely with Paola and a lot of students that are in that organization. Nikki, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Nikki Barron. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission at Hamilton. I'm also an alum. I graduated from Hamilton in 2002. I'm going to make my fun fact related to Tyler's a bit in that when I was a junior at Hamilton, I had a goldfish in my room, and that was a year that I was living in a single, and I named my fish Roomy because it was my roommate that year.
Very creative, Nikki. Fantastic. So like I said before, we have three guests with us. So Maria, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Thank you so much, and good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Genao-Homs. I serve as Associate Dean for Diversity and Inclusion, and I'm based out of the Dean of Students office. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and as I was sharing earlier, I always have a hard time figuring out a fun fact. So I think one of the funnest things I've done this summer in response to this COVID time that we're in is that I finally jumped into one of my dreams, which was getting into gardening. And I actually did a plot with a partner who helped me out, which was actually our vice president for student life, who said, let's do a garden. And I'm like, yeah, I'll follow you, let's do it. And we just harvested our last set of crops. We had tomatoes and all kinds of stuff. And it was definitely very, very enjoyable. And also I learned that on those little stickers for like tomatoes and stuff, where they tell you that you should plant them 2 feet apart, that is not a joke. Follow the sticker. I thought, no way, I can totally like plant it closer. Don't do that because they all just get all jumbled up and it's crazy. And then you have to separate them. It's hectic. So that's my fun fact. And, you know, I find myself engaging with students at Hamilton in many different ways because my role doesn't naturally lend itself to doing that. So I try to attend meetings, show up in different ways, in student spaces and asked to be invited in student spaces, but I also serve as a liaison to the Posse Scholars and as a co-advisor to the Questbridge Scholars Network. So that are definitely two ways that I engage with a lot of phenomenal students. So I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Maria. Jeff, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff McArn. My title is College Chaplain. If you don't know what a chaplain is, it's a person to encourage religious life / spiritual life / meaning of the world kind of things. So that's a great, mysterious, beautiful thing to involve your time with. So I'm really happy to have been here at Hamilton College for some time. I was here when Nikki was here and before. Wow. Um, he, him, his, my pronouns. So fun fact, backpacking. I hadn't been backpacking for probably 5 years in any kind of serious way. That was a 10-day trip in New Mexico, which I had kind of forgotten about until two of my kids invited me to come along to a backpacking trip in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, which is beautiful if you've never been up there. We have some really nice mountains here in upstate New York. The Adirondack Park is amazing. Mm-hmm. But New Hampshire is dramatic, and I have a high school senior, just so a year older than you guys probably, who said, "Let's go, Dad." And then a middle kid who's just graduated from college, and she said, "Let's go, Dad." So I'm like, okay. And we were, hiking up, I don't know, 4,500, 4,900 foot peaks with 40-pound packs on. And this little girl was with me. This is Lily. She's an associate chaplain, therapy dog, a constant figure in my area. So I'm glad that she was there because she gave me some serious therapy to make it through this backpacking trip. Anyway, that was a long, fun fact. Yeah, my interaction with students on campus is really to form connections in a variety of ways. I teach a course in religious studies, launch various discussion groups that are all aimed in some way at getting at spiritual engagement, questions of discussion, or how might we meditate together, or let's think about your own particular religious tradition. So support for our Muslim community, Jewish community, Catholic, Protestant, and then also we have a Zen Buddhist who comes to engage meditation life. So it's a little bit undefined exactly how to engage that. So it's really a great pleasure to meet students in a variety of ways. I also have a little bit of a connection to the COOP, which is our community outreach and opportunity project. And so a lot of community engagement. So that's a joy. I love being at Hamilton and love students, and I hope all of you come and join our collective community.
Thanks for the branding, Jeff. That was fantastic. And Paolo, last but not least.
Hey everyone, I'm super pumped to be with you tonight. My name is Paola Lopez. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the director of the Days-Massolo Center, which is the Campus Cultural and Equity Center. It is on the corner. We're proudly waving the Oneida Nation flag, the Pride Progressive flag, and the Black Lives Matter flag. So if you happen to drive up to campus, that's where I, work whenever we go back to campus operations. So fun fact, I grew up dancing, ballet, tap, jazz, modern, all the above. And recently our student group Heat sent out an email, their dance audition tape, and I might have taught myself their whole routine and debated about submitting a video for the audition, but I didn't because I didn't want it to be on social media. So all that to say is, Heat, I can do your dance routine and hopefully maybe someday you'll let me in. If you're interested in dance, I highly recommend checking out Heat. They're wonderful. And we have other dance groups on campus as well. How I find myself interacting with students on a regular basis is daily. I mean, just about probably an hour and a half ago, I was meeting with our president of student assembly, to meeting one-on-one with students to helping them navigating Hamilton, specifically as the Cultural and Equity Center. I get to advise 7 of our cultural student organizations, as Tyler mentioned. Gender and Sexuality Union is one of them, so I encourage you all to connect with them on social media. Black Latinx Student Union, La Vanguardia, Feminist of Color Collective, Women's Center, Voices of Color Lecture Series, And I believe I caught them all. I'm like a mom with multiple kids. I can't remember all their names and I start calling them all the same name, but I think I caught all of them. So we call ourselves the Days-Massolo Center Cluster. I co-program with other student organizations and helping them get their message and amplifying and utilizing the center's platform. And then just an official, life mentor here to support our students as they navigate Hamilton and as we seek for a more equitable and inclusive campus. So thank you for letting me be here with you all this evening.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. And I would be remiss not to mention that the three of you are a great support network for our students, but you're just a small number of the mounds and mounds of people who serve as support networks for our Hamilton students as part of our greater community. So while we would love to have all 150 of you on camera on our Zoom, we thought that the three of you would be excellent additions. So thank you all each for being here tonight. For the students who are watching, as always, we have some prepared topics that we're going to kind of dig into, but we want this to be as about what you all want to know as you want it to be. So we encourage you to put question and answers in the question and answer feature, and also to introduce yourselves in the chat. We'd love to know who's watching and where you're all Zooming from tonight. So that being said, I think, Nikki, you can kick it off.
Sure. So we are so excited that all of you are here today. And I think just to start off, maybe the first topic could be, could you answer the question of how do you think that Hamilton creates a campus community and a sense of belonging for all of our students here? I think also thinking about both right now, currently in the virtual world, but also if you could answer the question in non-COVID times of how do we create community and a sense of belonging when people are all in person?
Well, I was going to say, I think, I'll not talk very long because Paula and Jeff have engaged this in a more active way than I get to all the time. But I think that was always something that we were trying to figure out, how we were going to, turn everything from in-person to virtual and not exhaust everyone's eyeballs because staring into a screen can feel very one-dimensional. And, it's trying to figure out how do we connect with you right through this little box that we're all in a way that feels meaningful. And we do a lot of listening from our students. So we asked a lot of questions as to, what were some ways that students could feel more connected. I know that we've had, in trying to get creative, and, we're all still in this, and this is all very new. So we have no precedents. I know that there are some folks that thought about sending some care packages to some of the remote students. That's something that I know some of our mentors have done through the Posse Scholars Program, and thinking about how do we make sure that those cohort members feel as connected as possible. And so giving them some of the things that our students on campus have already, so that they can feel like they're all holding the same things and being together. I know that, Tyler and I have been working as co-advisors to the Quest for Scholars Network. And so we're trying to figure out how do we do this grab bag welcome back situation. And so, for example, the president of the Quest for Scholars Network at the time was in quarantine. So our students, before they came to campus, had to quarantine for 2 weeks, and he was nearby. He was maybe like 5 miles away in a hotel, but we wanted to make sure that that Mason, his name is Mason, felt connected while we were getting out these welcome bags. So we actually Zoom Mason in to this live setup that we had on campus. And so Mason was on the screen as students were walking up. So it was really funny because we kept on moving Mason around the space.
I will also say one quick thing about those grab bags is that, we wanted students to have a good variety of things in those grab bags, candy, necessities, and the amount of floss that Maria brought in for those grab bags was nothing short of amazing to me. All of our students are also going to be cavity free, which is really important.
Yes, I mean, it's about balance, right? We can give you a little bit of junk food, but we also need you to brush your teeth and floss. I mean, that's a real thing, right? And yeah, I might have gotten a little bit too much floss. I also may have gotten a little bit too much toothpaste, but I mean, you know, if toothpaste doesn't expire, right? So the students who helped us pack these bags were really, were just cracking up about that because they're like, oh man, that is a lot of toothpaste. So that's, you know, that's a couple of like different ways that we try to make sure that in this time we try to be creative about, you know, how we've connected with students. And it's been really fun trying to figure that out. But, you know, like trying to connect through these little boxes.
I know.
Something in creating a sense of belonging, whether in person or virtually, that we had the awesome opportunity to do this summer and continue to do, is we were thinking about what do our students need, right? Like in a day, our world's changed, right? From wherever we are. And overnight we had to think, how do we not only just survive, but can we even like get to thriving? And so I had a really great opportunity to work. I get to work with 8 student ambassadors at the Days-Massolo Center, and together virtually we came together and created a COVID-19 resource list that you can still find on our website. We had through social media various, you know, resources, because you never know where students are, right? You don't know. We're all coming. I see, you know, there's someone from Nebraska. Hi from Nebraska. I'm from Oklahoma, so we can talk about wind sweeping down the plains. But you know, you never know where students are from and what needs they have. And so we, you know, hosted virtual through IG Live, like how do you apply for food stamps, and how do you help your family apply for those, or how do you, you know, find these mutual aid networks at a time when the nation was, you know, grappling and the world was grappling with how do we adjust to this. And I think for our students, and I can speak for myself, it although chaotic, it brought a great sense of peace and community to get to work alongside my students to create a resource, right? And I can speak of, you know, the Sunrise Movement students wanted to create a campus mutual aid system. And so together we worked to do that. And now, you know, there's a whole mutual aid across campus on how to sign up because students came up with the idea and we were able to achieve it. And so we got really creative. I can say I've tapped as much of this creative mind as I've ever tapped before in my life. I invite you all to one program that is going to stick around. We call it Cafecito Friday. If you don't speak Spanish, cafecito means coffee. It's like talk and coffee and chit chat. So we call it coffee, connection, and chisme, which is kind of like gossip, but trust me, we don't gossip. It's just, I like the word chisme. It's fun. But we're having it this Friday. You all can check out our Instagram and join us if you are free and available in your time zone. But that came out of, we just wanted to connect and have conversations with people across the world about conversations about history, politics, and things that aren't, you know, necessarily for a grade or for a test, but things that were relating to us personally as we were navigating and are still navigating these unique times. And so on campus, I've been meeting with students in a physically distant fashion. I convinced a student to go on a physically distant walk with me around the track. I think they thought it was exercise. I genuinely enjoyed it, just being like, you know, a little bit like more than 6 feet, 12 feet away from a student, but we had a really great conversation. So we're finding ways to connect with you and help students know that this is their home away from home, and they can still make their mark at Hamilton.
And I think this current season of separation does make it hard to create a sense of community and belonging, but there are these ways, and I guess I gravitate towards, you know, space. So I know Paola, the Days-Massolo Center, as a space. They're not here, but our outdoor leadership folks, Andrew and Sarah, the Glenn House, also a space where you can feel like you or gain a sense of belonging. And we feel that way in the chapel, where they have this amazing kind of covert space. You wouldn't know it just kind of walking around campus and, oh, there's a chapel. Well, I don't feel like praying today, so I'm not going to go there. But on the 3rd floor, it's kind of like a big living room with, and there's a meditation room and a kitchen and did I mention a dog? And so really make an effort to have a sense of home, you know, which is in a lot of ways, and all of these various spaces, and there are others, but you know, how is it possible to feel like you belong and that you can meet people and have a sense of some sort of shared experience, togetherness that has some kind of staying power and building some kind of trust. You know, it's an inexact science, of course, but it's in a campus like ours, which is relatively small. I mean, it is easy to invite people into a space and to feel like there's some family sense of togetherness, even though a lot of that in the old days, like a year ago, on eating together and sitting down and sharing a meal and talking. That's like a huge part of our programming.
Mhm.
And now it's like, well, the takeout boxes, we're sort of trying to figure out how to distantly eat outside now, which is safer, and still create that kind of togetherness. We have a program we call Dinner Vespers. So it was, the heart of it was eating inside the chapel in a sacred space, but having dinner together, where, I don't know, there's this imagery of food on the altar where it's not a prayer liturgy, but a kind of lived experience of sitting down around the table as a sign of intimacy, and sharing some conversation, some topic. We also have this program called Recoup and Soup, which is really just an invitation to meditate, or if meditation's too specific a word, sit in silence. We're Tyler is a bona fide member of that.
You say every week I am there on Thursday, whether it's in Zoom or in person. As is Lily. It's a fantastic, like, 20-minute just sitting, especially now, in the Zoom world where you're constantly looking at a screen. It's just getting away and closing it off for 20 minutes is something that you don't necessarily think about all the time, and it's a very important thing, at least for me.
Yeah, and I think in terms of communal belonging, people will come there from a busy day. Right now we're out under a canopy,
Yeah.
but it's kind of nice. I mean, we typically have been upstairs in this meditation room, but it has, like, one of these COVID shake-up moments is like now we're outside, and it's a different kind of engagement with our, the environment, or you can hear people kind of laughing in the background and sharing life, and what's it like to sit in silence with that ambient noise or the breeze. But that there's a togetherness about that, for those of us gathered in that regular pattern. Paola also, I know you've been a part of this, and Maria too. That there's this, like, just a touchstone almost of like, look, this is happening. I may not be able to come this time, but I know it's there, and that has some kind of meaning of community feel to it.
Well,
So
it's kind of comforting to know, right? Like you know that on Thursdays that's available to you.
right. And a valuable part is missing now, the soup part.
Yes.
I
Your
mean,
bread, Jeff, your bread.
there's the recoup of sense of, like, let me reorient and settle my crazy brain to think about what am I really up to. So the recoup part is alive, but the soup part, which is a key part,
Yeah.
is missing. So we're looking forward to when that can come back, because that, again, creates the sense that we're sitting around a table together, just sharing a little something. We typically will do what's on your mind, like a one sentence summary of just something that you're thinking about, which we still do outside under the canopy, but it has a little more meaning. You're sitting around a table where you're sharing bread and soup.
Totally.
So those are just images of how community life can happen, and have this sense of not only just meeting people, but being connected to people, and that's just an awesome experience.
I was going to say too, we have we have these themed res life floors, and it makes me think of the mindfulness floor and, the wolf floor,
Right.
and, different ways that students can live in community with
Mm.
other students who have similar interests to them is also a way to connect and feel engaged and feel like you're surrounded by other people that have this common interest that you have. And you were talking about mindfulness, Jeff, so it made me think of the mindfulness floor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then I know if Amy James were here, she would talk a little more about the community that's built around community service and how this really cool alternative break program, which is about as developed as any program in a college that I know about. I don't know about, every college, but I know a bunch of colleges. And, typically you might run 2 or 3 trips over a break. Um, but, there was a time where we had 10 student led. I think, now it's back down to maybe 6, which is still more than I'm aware of other colleges sending out. And it's really just part of our culture. And those trips, I'm telling you, there is a way you can develop a friend group that gets kind of, stabilized. But then this alternative break program, wow, I've gone my whole time and I didn't know you. And now I feel like, we're really close, and who's your friend group? And I like, and that's a really another cool way of creating a sense of belonging. And also another one of those residential floors, the core floor, they call it, the community outreach, as part of the Res Life experience, which that's a really cool way to connect.
I highly recommend the alternative spring break program. I did it 2 of my 4 years that I was a student. My sophomore year, our trip was to Florida. My junior year, our trip was to North Carolina. The Florida trip was doing beach cleanup and an environmental conservation project, and the North Carolina trip was Habitat for Humanity. And we drove as a group in a van all the way from Clinton, New York, down to the central east coast of Florida, and then the next year from Clinton, New York, all the way down to the Concord, North Carolina area. And it's a really fun way to make friends with people that you otherwise wouldn't cross paths with on campus, and you're all working together on the same community service project for a week of the 2 weeks of spring break. But I think you all have talked a little bit about the opportunities for student engagement on campus. So let's switch to that topic now. And this is actually pretty closely related to one of the questions that one of our students submitted in the Q&A in our audience tonight. Paola, I think I'm going to direct this question directly to you because the student is asking if you could please explain a little bit more about what the Days-Massolo Center is, what happens at the DMC at the Days-Massolo Center, and Paola, if you could also talk about the ways that students can be engaged in all the activities that you oversee there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for submitting that question. So the Days-Massolo Center, like I said, is their cultural and equity center. So it's where we have those conversations about difference, or where that kind of dialogue originates from, right? So intercultural dialogue, conversations about race, gender, class, the things where intersections occur, right? You might hear about intersectionality, so on and so forth. And so we're kind of, not the only epicenter, but one of those main catalyzing centers. And a lot of that work is student driven. And I get the opportunity to listen to student ideas and hear and look at their energy, and how do I match that to create, cultural change on our campus. And so from the DMC, you're going to see dialogue opportunities. Right now, actually, Maria and I are working on hosting what we're calling processing circles, because we recognize that there's a lot going on around the globe, and specifically with social and racial issues, right? And it's not just domestically in the United States, it is globally, anti-Black sentiment, so on and so forth, that is occurring wherever geopolitically you might be located. And so we're creating space to have those conversations, to guide students on how do you bring this up and how do you process that in a peer-to-peer space. So we're offering that to our students. So that's an example of it's more restorative, it's more of a personal reflection, but with your peers in a non-academic setting where you can safely share those thoughts, those processes, those emotions, and know that you're supported in that environment. So that's one resource that we're offering this fall. Two programs where we're talking about environmental justice. Last fall, we had 4 students who are working and studying environmental studies to women's studies. You know, it's the beautiful thing about Hamilton with the open curriculum. You can mix and match and make it your own. But they all are passionate about environmental justice from various angles. And they led a workshop last fall about environmental justice. And that is called our What Is series. And so what is, we work with faculty to identify students who can hold peer-to-peer, again, peer-to-peer conversations about a social justice issue that they're passionate about. These particular students wanted to talk about environmental justice. And so that's also very important right now in our day-to-day lives, right? In addition to that, we have our student organizations that also do their own work, right? Their own social justice and campus cultural change work. A perfect example that you can tune into in about a month is we will be hosting Dr. Youssef Salam of the Exonerated Five for a virtual lecture series. And so the organization is called Voices of Color Lecture Series. They exist to bring large name lectures to our campus. So in prior years, we had Tarana Burke of the Me Too movement. We had Angela Davis, historical figure in the civil rights movement. So you can see that our students are moving, they're movers and shakers. And so we are that space where everything coalesces, comes together and ignites. And so I encourage y'all, yes, tune in October 29th at 6 p.m. Eastern time. It's free, come on in the virtual sphere. But we do a lot, and kind of to Jeff's point, we break bread a lot. And so one of the things that the students love about the DMC is it is a home. I don't live there. No, I don't physically live there, but students who would like to live there that I sometimes have to wake up before I head home for, you know, from work. But it is a huge living room space. If you follow us on our social media, sometimes we do tours of this space just to remind people what it, you know, the look, the taste, the smell, the feel. So it is a huge living room where students come and have movie nights on Friday nights. They make cookies in the kitchen. We have a full-fledged kitchen. And it is students home away from home, because sometimes, I don't know about you, originally I'm from Puerto Rico, I would love to make my arroz con pollo and it just gives me comfort, whatever your home food is. A lot of students will reserve the kitchen and make crepes, or will make, I think alcapurrias one time they made those. So it is students home away from home. On the second floor, we have our Rainbow Room, which is the home of the Gender and Sexuality Union. Where students can meet for tea time, which is for trans students to have a support group and a safe space to meet outside of the Gender and Sexuality Union meeting time. We also have the Women's Center. Our Women's Center supports women in education, advocacy, activism. We also provide free sexual and menstrual health products to any student across campus. So that is available. You just walk into our restrooms and always there. And then we also partner with our Community Standards Office to offer outside consultation with our local YWCA affiliate, as well as in the chaplaincy. And so they host virtual office hours right now, but in this school year, you can meet with them to connect about health resources in the local area, so on and so forth, or other needs that you might have. We do a lot, so I'm trying to think about everything that I do. Right now, we're partnering with a faculty group, so it's really neat because you get to connect with faculty in a different sense than like turning in homework or working on a paper. Mm-hmm. So right now we have a faculty group who are really passionate about anti-racism and wanting to have conversations about race. And so we have 3 of our student organizations working with this faculty core group to develop a film and discussion series. So it will start off next month with watching Debajo de la Misma Luna and Gun Hill Road. And they're talking about the intersectionality of Latinx Heritage Month and gender identity. And so the students and the faculty are coming up with discussion questions, hosting the screening virtually, and then having a post-film discussion. So we'll see how that goes. It's our first time to do this, but you're getting to engage and kind of drive that narrative and drive the social change on campus. We also have opportunities to engage in Heritage Month. So celebration for those who identify as Latinx. This is Latinx Heritage Month right now until October 15th. So we're partnering in celebration with La Vanguardia and Black Latinx Student Union, but we have applications coming out for folks who want to participate in planning Black History Month and Women's History Month. And so we plan on making that a collaborative campus-wide effort in addition with the student organizations who are the main hub of that identity or social group. So I hope that covers a little bit more. I'm happy to answer more specifics, but all of that is for you. You can engage in any of that. And if I didn't cover something that you're like, I want to cover this, email me and let's make it happen, because this is your campus and we're here to make it your experience for these next 4 years. And that's what you deserve out of this time.
So it sounds like you don't do anything, Paola.
No, not at all. Nope. I'm running on copious amounts of caffeine, right?
No, I think one of the things that you didn't cover is how much of a great resource you are for students too. You know, I constantly am talking to students across campus, and they're always like, you know, I was talking to Paola about this, and just how supportive you are of the student ideas, because of what you just said about how it's the students' campus and it's their community. It's just amazing to see, and I really appreciate that about you. So
Thank you. Yes, I just talked with a student yesterday. He was like, I want drag to be huge on campus, and I was like, make a plan, let's go.
Yeah.
So if you do come up with an idea, I might charge you with making the plan first, and then we can start going. So feel free to chat with me here, and let's see what you want to do on this campus.
That's great. Thank you. So we also have students join our collective community through some really special programs that we have. We have students come to Hamilton through QuestBridge, through Posse, through HEOP, and opportunity programs. Maria, would you like to talk about those groups and then about the experiences that students have through those programs during their time on the Hill?
Sure. So those are really special programs, and they're all very unique, and they're all really important parts of our Hamilton community. So the Posse Scholars Program brings in for us 10 scholars every year, and so that cohort essentially is your group through your time at Hamilton. And the neat thing with the Posse Scholars Program is that you are assigned a mentor when you arrive as a cohort. So you have already a direct contact and someone that is essentially connecting with you regularly. And there's a regular schedule that you will follow as a scholar in meeting with that faculty mentor, and it's specifically a faculty member, so a professor, right? When we talk about faculty, we're talking about professors, teachers on campus. And so that person will be assigned to that cohort. You will essentially move through the experience of Hamilton with that group of 9 other people, right? So 10 including yourself. It doesn't mean that you're only with those folks. We, encourage that you always branch out. But essentially, this is the group that you're moving through, coming into Hamilton together, and then moving through the experience, with these other folks. But the neat thing about that group, and then also our QuestBridge scholars, which is also a very large group of students. I think right now we're at about 70 something QuestBridge scholars, which is incredible. And I always tell the QuestBridge scholars that I feel like, especially the ones that are in our 3rd year, that they are my counterparts because we arrived together. So when QuestBridge and Hamilton became partners and brought in the first class of our QuestBridge scholars, I arrived at that time too. So it's been 2 years since our first classes come in. These students are now juniors. And so that's a really special group because we arrived together. And the QuestBridge Scholars Network is really interesting because they actually have a student group. So the network is a student group on campus. They are under our student assembly umbrella. They promote and do all kinds of programs. So you can be plugged in that way, and immediately you're already arriving connected to a student group that has to move through requesting funding and doing programming and all kinds of things. So that's a really neat built-in program that just is a part of being a QuestBridge scholar. And you get to hang out with me often and right now with Tyler, which is, we make up the duo that is advising our QuestBridge scholars. And also you get a team, I would say, of faculty mentors for that group. And that's also, again, really interesting because when we think about the experiences of our first generation students, which to me, I tell our first gen students that I see them as pioneers. You are arriving into a place where you have no kind of social capital, no sociocultural understanding of what it is that you're walking into, right? Like you understand that college comes after high school and you understand what that might mean, but what does it really mean to navigate, right? And so you're arriving as, I think of you as a pioneer. You're entering an unknown land, or the jungle, as I like to call it, right? And the jungle of higher education, which can be very, very confusing when you're arriving to a new place. So you're not just leaving home, but you're also transitioning into something new. And what we know is that we want to connect you right away. And that's where Tyler and I come in. That's where these faculty mentors come in, right? So these professors that you're automatically connected to, so that as you're getting situated at Hamilton, you already have folks that you can ask all kinds of questions as you're moving through, I would say, your first semester. And we're here for you, right, the entire time. But when I think about the first gen experience, we want to make sure that your first semester, you feel as plugged in and as connected, right? Because really that first semester is key to setting you up for the rest of your time, in college. And our HEOP students, so HEOP stands for Higher Ed Opportunity Programs, and they actually get connected through a department. So our Higher Ed Opportunity Programs and our Opportunity Scholars arrive a little bit earlier than everyone else, which is also an incredible benefit because you're arriving to campus before your entire class shows up. So I like to tell those students that I feel like they're experts before the rest of their class gets here, which I think is uber cool, because while everyone else is like trying to figure out where Opus is and what dining hall I should be eating in and how do I get from one class to the next as fast, you're already like, hey, just follow me. I can set you up, through this. So those programs I feel are just incredibly fortunate and really special group of students who are really just guiding the way for one another and really doing some incredible things as they arrive to Hamilton. Many of those students are student leaders on campus. They either create student groups, they lead groups. I think of, not that I love mindfulness so much, but I do. I think of some of the interns that are in the chapel and that get to work through the office of our chaplain. And then also the Days-Massolo Center has tons of students that either work as ambassadors. So if you all are thinking about what are some other ways that I can get connected, everybody needs a job, right? I had 3 jobs in college. So one of the things that you can do is that you can apply to be an ambassador. And our ambassadors are employees on campus, right? Student jobs on campus, and you get to work and be fully plugged in through the DMC. There's so many other ways. And so these students that are Higher Ed Opportunity Programs, Posse or QuestBridge, are students that you see everywhere on campus and are plugged in, doing internships and, just being incredibly active. I feel like my first contact with those students, I remember, was when I had first arrived on campus and was doing a presentation introducing myself to actually the entire staff body. And one of the Posse scholars was actually doing our tech. So they were setting up my laptop and my microphone and all this stuff. And I just arrived to campus maybe a week before. I somehow found the room in which I was doing this presentation. And this student who was in their 3rd year was just so incredibly comforting and, just kind of like, it's cool. Like, I'm going to hook up your computer. It's going to be fine. So these students get really plugged in and are really just, oh my gosh. I am always just loving all over them. And I think they think I'm completely weird, but it's because I think that those groups are really special.
Yeah, I think that you made some really excellent points, Maria. And I just want one more point to kind of tie it all together is that, these are 3 parts of individual student identities. So if you come into Hamilton as a QuestBridge scholar or a Posse scholar or someone in the HEOP or opportunity programs, that is part of who you are as a person, but that's not the entire person that you are. And it's like Maria mentioned a little bit ago, just because you're part of a 10-person posse doesn't mean that that's your entire group either. Like, you are interacting across campus with other organizations and just kind of everything. So I just wanted to make, if that wasn't clear by what Maria said, which I think it was, but I just wanted to really kind of hit home the fact that these are just student identities, and part of really kind of multifaceted individuals on campus.
I want to just jump on the job part that you mentioned, Maria. It's my privilege to work with Amy James and the Coop on this really cool program that I hope you'll all think about if you come to Hamilton. It's called CSI, which is, not crime scene investigation, but that gives it a little air of mystery. But it's Coop Service Internship Program, which is really basically, instead of a campus job, if you're interested in community outreach and getting involved in our local, largely in Utica, which is is our local city that has a lot of great, cool things, but also has a lot of needs. And it's just a way to get to know the larger community and to fulfill, a need you may have to earn some money. And so right away from your first year, you're employed to be an intern in a nonprofit agency, 6 hours a week plus a weekly meeting. So about 8 hours a week through this CSI program. And it's a really unique, and I don't know, I think of it as not super well known around Hamilton. I mean, the students who are part of it is another way of really feeling these weekly meetings where you can really, like Posse and Questbridge, like you really becomes part of your identity, one aspect of your connectivity, but also you can earn some money, which of course, helps. I just wanted to slip that in into the picture here.
Fantastic.
That's great. So Jeff, you've touched on this a little bit so far, but I'm wondering if you can also elaborate a little bit more on what the spirituality and religious life experience is like for students who choose to pursue that as part of their identity during their time at Hamilton.
Yeah, so religion and spirituality are also mysterious categories. Many students leaving a home environment and coming to college, for many students is like, oh, this is the perfect time to shed some of that identity, which I totally understand. And yet, there's something valuable maybe that you're thinking, well, what does it really mean to me? I know what it means to my mom and dad and uncles and aunts and grandmothers, but what does it mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what can happen in an environment like Hamilton College, is to be together with peers who also are thinking about that in various ways, about what does it mean to be, a Roman Catholic, or what does it mean to be a Jehovah's Witness, or what does it mean to be a Muslim, on this campus, and how can I express my Judaism here and with my peers, and maybe create something that wasn't possible in my synagogue, but might be possible as we think about it together. But I think of it as a very, we do have leadership in these areas that have experience and, can guide. But really the heart of it is the student experience, to say, here's what it means for us to build a community, that has some personal meaning, and not some kind of meaning that was constructed for me.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these categories of religious identity that are important, and for many people, I don't feel like I'm a religious Jewish person, say, but I still feel connected to that culture and that identity, and so I'd like to pursue that without feeling like I'm identified as a religious person necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and that can be the case with our Muslim student community as well. I want to be able to celebrate Eids and feel like it's part of the college accepted landscape without necessarily saying, hey, I'm a religious person. So that is part of what we try to navigate with students. Feel like, yeah, I'm connected to the degree I want to be, but also what is the meaning of it to me? And then there's a whole other category of like, look, I'm just spiritual. I'm not religious. I don't really feel any identity to a particular religious tradition, but I want to explore what is life all about? Like how do I think about like, the world? And you know, is there an intersection of my how I define meaning with my political life, or how I think about the environment, or my maybe you know personal relationships? Is that what is the location of meaning? We offer a grief support group for many students who experience some kind of loss while a student here, and kind of hard to process it with peers because that's a difficult thing. Um, you know, that's a engagement with a spiritual sense of loss and how to navigate that. I mean, and I don't know. I guess the last thing I'll say is, you know, there's a way of thinking about cultural life, and here is you know, for the chaplaincy, and I'm so glad to have a partnership with Paola and our whole diversity and equity inclusion team. You know, because the line between you know religious identity and cultural identity is often pretty thin. So there's a group on campus that I hope you'll think about getting involved with. And Maria and I were just talking about this today, or emailing, which is the same as talking. Um, about
It is. It's kind of like talking. Yes.
About our students who are really interested in our local indigenous population, and you know that's you know it's a understanding of a spirituality, but also a cultural heritage and a historical legacy. And you know, we're looking for ways to think intentionally at Hamilton College about you know how we relate to the Oneida Indian Nation, you know, on whose ancestral lands we exist and have our campus. And you know, the Oneida Nation is alive and well and right in our neighborhood. And what's our commitment to understanding this? You know, what's happening in the nation? How might we be partners or have a relationship? So that's a spiritual. I think of it as a spiritual thing. Or you could also just think of it as it's a cultural engagement, cross-cultural engagement, but a really important one, especially for our college. Since, as I hope you'll know, that our college was founded on this idea that Samuel Kirkland and Chief Shenandoah of the Oneidas formed this friendship and realized that an educational mission to both these Oneida youth and these European settlers could coexist and could learn together, which didn't exactly happen that way. But it's a nice image to think that we are trying to do that now. You know, different cultures coming together, different ethnicities and language groups joining together on this hill to try to learn to live together and learn together. You know, that's a great legacy, I think, to hold on to. So I call all of that spiritual, Nikki.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and go ahead, Tyler.
No, you go ahead, Maria.
No, I was just going to share that, you know, it's one of the things that we want to, you know, that our team really works on, and we're not all of us are here. So Dean Alan Harrison, who oversees the Office of Accessibility and International Students, also makes up the rest of our team. What we're wanting to be clear with students and about what's also really, really exciting about your time in college and what we're wanting to do with our team, and also we collaborate with folks all over campus, is that this is an opportunity for you to explore your multiple identities. And so, you know, Jeff talked about that very fine line between your religious identity or just religious identity and cultural identity. And it is, and you get to explore the identities that you have, that you arrive with, but we also encourage you to learn about others. And so, you know, the chaplaincy is one of my favorite places on campus because I think there's this really interesting opportunity to express your own faith tradition, but then also engage with other faith traditions and borrow from those, right? And explore those. And, you never know what could happen, right? As you're kind of figuring it out for yourself, right? And we're encouraging you to not just think about, what do my parents want? What does my family want? But like Jeff said, what do I want? And, we're wanting you to challenge yourself and engage with other racial and ethnic communities. And, Jeff touched on Utica. Utica's maybe 15 minutes from here. And if you engage through CSI, through the COOPs, through like service-oriented opportunities on campus, you can engage with this incredible community of refugees, which is like just down the road, and just really broaden your horizons. We ask you to come open, and we ask you to arrive very curious and to be willing to engage with difference and celebrate difference and be okay making mistakes, and acknowledging those mistakes and keeping on going, right? Like, this is about really you filling out the identities that make you up as a person. And I say this to first year students all the time, and I will say this to you all, as I hope you will become one of our first year students, is that I challenge you to take note of who you are when you arrive at Hamilton, and then take note of who you are at the end, right? And what that journey has been for you, and identifying, kind of solidifying or beginning to solidify and filling out your identities, right? Really reflecting on that and taking time for that. That's also a really important part of the college experience. So you come here obviously to go to school and to fulfill that piece, but I think the identity development piece is so important. And that's what our team is so fortunate to get to do.
And such an opportunity. I'll just say quick, like, once you go through college and you enter into, the real world, it's amazing how, it's hard to find, these communities where you can engage or question or think about. But here in this campus, you're living next to someone that you may not have encountered that identity before. And what a great opportunity, like Maria said, to just like, wow, I want to know, what does it mean to be a Muslim? Like, what is that like? I never met a Muslim before, and I want to know. And it's like, that's a rare opportunity, really, and it's available here. And so it's great to take advantage of that.
And I think that's what makes Hamilton so special. Again, speaking from my own perspective, from having been a student, is that students get to explore themselves, who they are. Our motto is know thyself, but they do it in a really safe environment. What is also special is that this is the kind of place that will fully support students in that process of discovery and in the process of exploration in all aspects of their Hamilton experience, academically, in the classroom, out of the classroom in terms of the extracurricular experiences, but also just in terms of the social experiences that Jeff and Maria and Paola have all just described this evening. I think if the students in the audience tonight are all considering other small liberal arts colleges, there's a lot that we have in common. There's a lot of similarities that we share, but one of the ways that I think Hamilton stands out from other places is truly that support from faculty and staff and from your peers for making your experience here what you want it to be, and for being fully supported in the process of discovering new things about yourself and exploring new interests.
Yeah, I think kind of summing everything up too is, based on what everyone has said tonight, in what point in your life can you spend 1 week going to Black and Latinx Student Union and going to a Muslim, prayer session, and going to a listening circle with everyone, and then also attending a football game and a baseball game and watching your friend perform in a play. Like, you never get that experience again. And so I think, and I hope that what we were able to talk about here tonight really gave you a sense of, what the kind of support services and experiences are for students at Hamilton. But also know that, that is going to exist for you, and your week is going, your week can be as busy and as full as you want it to be wherever you go. But I hope that you can kind of envision yourself and what your week will look like at Hamilton from what Paola, Maria, and Jeff all said tonight. So that being said, I'm going to put a few links in the chat. I know Paola had shared a link already, but you can feel free to check those out. You can also go to our website, find all of that stuff. But also Jeff, Maria, Paola, if you have any other links, feel free to throw them in there too. But kind of now that it's 8 p.m., kind of wrapping up this session, which somehow an hour went by in a blink of an eye for me. These are all prospective students who are watching tonight, and we've been asking all of our guests, what advice do you have for these students as they navigate this kind of college experience and college application season in this virtual world? Kind of any advice that you all have for these students watching tonight would be fantastic.
So I guess I'll start us. I was gonna say, be bold and just submit those applications. Really be bold as you're submitting your statements and talk about who you are, right? Like just try to be as vulnerable as possible and really just share who you are, what you're wanting to do and what your dreams are.
Mm.
I would say, do your best not to stress out about it. It's a big step. It's a really important thing. But something good is going to happen to you. And like Maria said, try your best to be yourself and not say, what does Hamilton College want? How can I put forward a self that may not be true but might be acceptable? Like, be, know thyself, be thyself, don't stress.
Jeff's point, also enjoy the ride that you're currently in. You are in your last year of high school. I know you've been probably wherever you are with the same people to your right and left for way longer than some of you might have wanted. But also take mental pictures, savor each moment of this year, and then know that you have a choice in this, right? And enjoy the options before you, enjoy the journey before you, and then look forward to the journey ahead with great expectations, because it is going to be everything and more wherever you go.
Yeah, if you need a de-stress, this is the picture of de-stressing right here.
I thank you all so much for those pieces of advice. I think that it's a weird and unique year, but thank you so much for that. And thank you all for watching. This is our third episode. Like I said before, thank you so much for sticking with us. If this is your first time, welcome. We hope that you come back. Maria, Jeff, and Paola, I consider myself lucky whenever I get to spend an hour with you all. So thank you all so much for taking an hour of your time this evening to be with us. Nikki and I both appreciate it, and I hope the students do too. We hope that you all, the students, maybe Jeff, Maria, Paola too, but really the students watching tonight, we hope that you all will tune in again next week for our episode called The Academic Experience at Hamilton, where we will have one of our students as well as a professor, a mathematics professor, join us to talk a little bit more about the academic experience here at Hamilton. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Lily. We hope you have a good night too.
Yeah, well.
And we will see you all hopefully next week.